Hello everybody, this is Julie and welcome to the Zentangle Project Pack series. This lesson is part of Project Pack number 14, and the theme of this Project Pack is all about featuring the artists within all of us and embracing the importance of creativity, especially when it comes to our mental health. Today we will be working with the materials found in our Project Pack number 14 envelopes. Project Packs are available from some certified Zentangle teachers and from Zentangle.com. If you don't have the Project Pack materials, we encourage you to follow along with these lessons with whatever materials you might have at home. We do recommend watching the introduction to this series first, but the rest of the Project Pack number 14 videos can be viewed in any order. Today, we will be working with our little booklet found in Project Pack number 14. And we'll be working on the page that says, "Creativity is contagious, pass it on," a quote by Albert Einstein done in Maria's beautiful calligraphy. And then it's pre-strung with this arc going all around across the pages with these corners. So that is what we're going to be working on. I'm going to be using the Micron PN, the Micron 10, our graphite pencil Tortillon, and also our white charcoal pencil with Tortillon. So let's just dive right in. Again, working on creativity is contagious, pass it on. And we're going to start with a simple string inside this arc. So this is where we're going to be working today. And I'm going to start in this corner. And as I go around the arc, I'm going to be drawing just some loops. Like that. And that is the string we're going to be working with today. Then I'm going to be using my Micron PN, the black PN that's found in Project Pack number 14. And I'm going to start with the tangle poke root. And before I begin, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about why I've chosen the tangles that I have today. As I talk, we can go along, and I'm going to be doing poke root in these sections right here. So here, 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 here. And it's going to be kind of like it's growing along the outer edge. And you can go over the string line. But my poke root, I'm just going to be growing. I like to work a little bit bigger. You draw a little stem. I like to do an upside down smile, a frown, and then the bulb of my poke root. And in this series, we're talking a lot about mental health. And I think one thing that affects all of our mental health, especially when it comes to artwork, but also just our lives in general, is comparison, and how we are always comparing ourselves to others, our lives to others, our successes to others, and definitely our artwork to others. And I hear it all the time. People will send me a message and be like, "I love the Zentangle Mosaic app, but I'm not ready to post my work there yet. It's not good enough." And that's just not true. I know that when I started working at Zentangle, I didn't tangle that much. I didn't consider myself an artist at all. And I was surrounded by all of this beautiful artwork done by Maria and Rick and Molly and Martha. And it was intimidating at first. And I felt that sense of my work's not good enough. And for a little while, I felt that. I mean, how could I not? I sit in my office and I look on the walls and there's, Maria's work or Molly would be like, oh, let me show you what I'm working on. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. But then at one point that intimidation and that comparison went away, and all of this beautiful artwork around me was inspiring and contagious. Creativity is contagious. And it really is. And I don't know exactly when that happened, but there was a point where I stopped comparing my work to Maria's and Rick and Molly and Martha's because my work was different. And it was the journey of being creative that was important, and not so much the finished project. So that's a theme I'm working on today, is to stop comparing ourselves to other people, comparing our artwork to other people, and appreciating it for what it is and just the creativity of it all. And it really is contagious. And once you let that go, you open yourself up to so much more creativity. And so back to why I've chosen the tangles I have today, starting with poke root, is these tangles are all inspired by those people I used to compare myself to. So I've chosen poke root to begin with today because this tangle reminds me of Molly. I think she uses it in her artwork a lot. And she's not afraid to be big and bold with her poke roots. And I've always really, really admired that. And so I'm using that as inspiration today to line my little section with these Molly-inspired poke roots. And you know what? Mine don't look just like hers, even though they're inspired by her, and that's okay. Remembering to turn your book as you go. And so there we have it, my Molly Hollabaugh inspired poke root. And then the next tangle we're going to do is perk. And I chose this tangle because I was inspired by Maria. And when I think of Maria and her tiles, definitely the first tangle that comes to mind is Muka. But for some reason, whenever I see the tangle perk, I think of her. And so that is the one we're going to do today. It's also one I haven't used in a while. And so I was excited to bring this back into my tangling practice. So we're going to fill all of these loops going across our arc with the tangled perk. So I'm going to begin in this first loop here. I'm going to do a slightly curved line that goes from one side to the other, an S shape. And then I'm going to aura that line. And then I'm going to leave a little space, and I'm going to add another one. I'm going to add a little line up here and down here. And I'm just going to go ahead and add these bands across all of my little loops. An S shape and aura, S shape and aura, once you have the bands going across all your little loops, I'm going to go back in, and in between these we're going to add some orbs. So I'm going to begin by adding an orb in this right in the middle of this loop. And then I'm going to add another one that's squeezed in there that's slightly behind that first orb. And I'm going to turn my book, and I'm going to do it on the other side. And then I'll fill in the next row. I find the Tangle Perk to be so elegant. And I'm just going to do that in all of my perks that I have going across my arc. And there we have all of our perks. So next I'm going to be using the Micron 10. And I'm going to go to this first space right here. And the tangle I'm going to use here is Diva Dance. And I chose this tangle because I am inspired by Martha. I've noticed this in her work a lot. Sometimes I see her in meetings or something on the side doing a little diva dance on her notes. It's just always a tangle when I see it. I am reminded of Martha and her beautiful Zentangle art. So I'm going to incorporate that into my artwork today. And if at any point you have a space and the tangle I'm using doesn't resonate with you, think about tanglers and artists in your life and who inspire you, and maybe choose a tangle that resonates with you. So for Diva Dance, I'm going to start by drawing a line right down the middle of the section with a slight curve. And I love with these Micron 10s, this is a new nib size, or newer nib size from Sakura, this really thick line that you get. I think it's big and bold, and I really do like it. So I'm going to draw this line, and then I'm going to go and add these little ladybug lump shapes. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to aura those shapes. And then I'm going to add some more randomly on the line. And I'm going to keep going till this half of my space is full. I think when we compare ourselves to other artists and other tanglers or just anybody in life, we are robbing ourselves of the joy that we get from creating, whether it's artwork or from just enjoying what we're doing and enjoying our lives. It's so hard, I think, sometimes, especially with social media. Everybody is always posting the best of the best. And then you're left to compare your struggles with their highlight reel. Once you have completed this area, I'm going to go to this corner here, and I'm going to add another line. And I'm going to do the same thing. So another line kind of perpendicular, not exactly. Much like Maria, I'm okay with not having straight lines. And I'm going to add these little mounds on top of my line. And I'm going to aura. I found when I stopped comparing my work to the people around me, my practice improved so much. And not necessarily did my art get better, but the process became more enjoyable. I got more out of it. I was able to relax more, be a little bit more mindful, really reap those benefits that creativity has on our mental health. And then in this last section, I'm just going to keep drawing my mouth, but going in the opposite direction here. And fill this section. I do love how dramatic this 10 makes this diva dance, which I guess is fitting since the name is Diva. This tangle actually was a gift to Laura Harms, the diva. I Am the Diva in her weekly challenge quite some time ago. And there we have it, Diva Dance. So again, I'm still going to be working with my Micron 10 in this next section. And I'm going to do a tangle that I rarely ever use, and that is Cubine. And I am inspired to use this tangle by Rick, who we all know loves those geometric patterns. He loves straight lines. Quite the opposite of my tangling. I tend to stay away from those really geometric patterns like Paradox or Cubine, or really anything with a grid on it. But in honor of today and being inspired and catching the creativity from those around me, I'm going to do Cubine. So I'm going to start with a grid. And normally I would not try to make my lines so straight, but I am channeling my inner Rick. And then in the corner of these boxes, I'm going to draw another little box and fill that in, which is a breeze with these Micron 10s. In the same corner of every box. So you can kind of pretend that this Cubine continues on underneath your tangles, but we are going to stop right there. I think there's probably a little. And once you have filled in all these boxes in the corner of each space in your grid, you're going to go and connect this corner to that corner in each of the spaces. And there you have Cubine. So right now we're going to skip the space at the top of our section. We're going to go back to that. But I'm going to fill the other side with the same tangle. So I'm going to use Diva Dance and Cubine. You can choose different tangles. You can do whatever you want here, but I'm going to just repeat those on the other side just for symmetry, because I do like a little bit of symmetry. But I'm going to do Cubine right here again. So we're going to add our grid. You can see these boxes are a little smaller than they were over here, and that's okay. And in this space, we're going to do some Diva Dance. I like to switch up directions and do it in like different parts because when we shade it, I feel like it gives a cool effect. And in this final space, I'm just going to do a little bit of cubine. Again, just continuing with my alternating pattern. Depending on how you drew your loops, you might not have the same number of spaces in between your perks as I do, and that is okay. You want to remember to breathe. These 10s are such a thick nib that it actually works really quickly. So if you're not using as thick of a pen, you might not be going as quickly, but that's okay. Just pause the video. And I was hesitant to use these big, thick pens at first, but I really enjoyed the boldness of them. Okay, so there we go. So we have Polkaroo inspired by Molly, and our Diva Dance inspired by Martha, Cubine inspired by Rick, and our perks inspired by Martha. So this middle space is for you. This is going to be your tangle, your mac and cheese tangle, as we like to call it. A tangle that you love and enjoy, that is easy for you. It is something you don't have to think about. And I think it's important to use these tangles a lot in our group because they do bring comfort, and they are things that we don't really have to think about, and we can just do, and there's no stress associated with those. So if you know me or anything about my tangling, you know that my mac and cheese tangle, my comfort tangle is Marasu. So we're going to nestle some Marasu right in this space. And we do have this binding in the middle here, and that's okay. We're just going to ignore it, pretend it's not there, and it's fine. So I'm going to start my spiral a little off-centered a little bit. But I'm still working with my Micron 10, but again, you can work with whatever pen you want. The space is for you. I'm just going to do some basic Marasu. Nothing fancy. So I drew my spiral. Now I had these bands going from one side to the other, slightly curved, starting a little bit closer together at the bottom and then getting further apart as we go to the other side. Sorry if this is one of your first project packs and you're not familiar with Marasu. I just kind of jumped right in. I got a little bit excited. Like I said, your mac and cheese tangles, you don't have to think about, you just do them. But if you're new to this tangle, then I apologize for not explaining what I was doing at first. But we're just going to add these bands going all around our spiral. So in the beginning of this video, I mentioned how I get a lot of messages about people who are reluctant to post their artwork online or to the Zentangle Mosaic app because they don't think it's good enough. They often say they need to practice some more. They're not ready, their work's not good enough. And to those people, please post your work. Everybody's work is different. There's no need to compare it to anybody else's. And like this page says, creativity is contagious. You have no idea who's going to see that tile and be inspired by it. Sometimes it's the littlest thing in a tile that can make the biggest difference. I know every once in a while I see a tile and the way they shaded it really inspires me. I'm like, wow, that changes the tangle completely. Or maybe they added an extra aura somewhere, and I'm like, and it just makes such a difference, and it's something I wouldn't thought of. And it's happened to me before where I posted a tile that I wasn't even too crazy about. And I think I've mentioned this before, where somebody came up to me like maybe over a year later and told me that that tile was their favorite Zentangle tile ever, and it had inspired this entire journal that she had filled, inspired by that tile that I did. And that moment was, first of all, really special for me as a teacher and as an artist. But it was just eye-opening, because creativity really is contagious. Pass it on. Share your work. Share your thoughts and your art. It's a way to connect with other people, especially during a time when connection is so important right now, finding ways to connect. And during a time where maybe the word contagious can be a little scary, I think creativity is something we want to encourage the spread of. When you remove that aspect of comparison, of feeling like I'm not good enough and my work is not good enough, then you can really enjoy the process. And like I said earlier, get all those benefits that being creative has for our mental health, not just the lack of comparison, but just being able to take your mind to a different place for a little bit. Once we have all of our spirals in our Marasu, I'm going to go back and I'm going to aura these bands. And now we have our arc complete with all the tangles that inspire us from the people that inspire us. And now we're going to shade. I'm going to pick up my graphite pencil here. And I'm going to start at the poke root. And I'm going to add some graphite all along the bottom of this poke root to make it really pop on top of the other tangles. And as we shade today, I'm definitely drawing inspiration from Molly, who loves to be bold with her shading. And it's definitely something that I admire about her artwork. I can pick her artwork out anywhere because she loves to shade. She loves that white charcoal, which we will be using. So don't be afraid to add a lot of graphite here. So after we've added the shading under our poke root, I'm going to go through and I'm going to add some graphite to all my tangles, and then I'm going to go back with my tortillon. But I'm next going to move to these perk, and I'm going to add graphite on top of each band. And then where my little orbs go on top of the next orb. We'll do the same thing on each one. And then with my diva dance that I have, I'm going to add graphite along the lines, those first lines of each section that I put down. And then along the edge there. So we'll come over here. Might be hard to see in some places. That's okay. And then finally, the cubine. This one's a fun one to shade. So I am going to, so in each little section, we have the little box that we drew, the line that connected it. And so I'm going to add some graphite to the top section of each box. You may have also noticed over here on the cubine, I made what some people might consider a mistake in oring these boxes. But since there are no mistakes in Zentangle, I just let it go. And I think that's also an important thing to remember in our work, especially when it comes to our mental health with everything, is just to be kind with yourself and allow yourself to be imperfect. And when this is all shaded and done, you're not going to notice that little pen line. Not even going to worry about it. And then finally, my favorite Marasu. I'm going to add a lot of graphite here, all along that initial spiral that I put down. Remember, you don't need to add graphite to where you already have black ink because it's already dark. But wherever you have white, and again, I'm being heavy-handed. I'm really channeling my inner Molly, putting down a lot of graphite. So next we want to take a tortillon, trusty little tortillon, and we're going to go and smooth out all of this graphite that we just put down. So we've put down quite a bit, and I'm going to start with my poke root. And I really want to make it look like that poke root is on top of everything else. And then I'm going to go to my perk, and first I'm going to soften this graphite on top of the band that I put down. And then I'm going to go back and do the orbs. So there we have all of our perk. So next we'll go to Diva Dance. And I'm just softening and then finally our cubine, and I'm just going to soften it so it fills those spaces. And finally, I did Marasu here in the middle. You may have done something else, but I'm going to go around. I like to do this in like a circular motion. Remembering to leave some white space in the middle there. And then I'm also along the bottom of this arc going to add a little bit of graphite. Not a whole lot. And then I'll go back and soften it. And then you can take my graphite here, and I'm going to go back to this poke root. And whenever I have a poke root that kind of sits on top of another, I'm just going to add a little bit of graphite, just to give it a little bit of dimension. And go back with my tortillon and just soften that ever so lightly. Next, we're going to take our little magic wand, this white charcoal, and I'm going to start with my diva dance, and I'm going to highlight like the middle of every section. And there you can see how it really gives dimension to these diva dance sections. And on the perk, I'm going to add some highlight to this side. So I'm going over where some of the graphite was. So it might get a little muddy, but that's okay. I'm actually not going to add any white charcoal to my cubine, but you can if you want. I'm going to go around and do all these perks. And then my Marsu, I'm going to go all around the middle. Giving it a lot of highlight here. And then sometimes when you see spots that maybe need a little bit more of your tortillon. And I'm going to take my tortillon for my white charcoal. And I'm just going to go ever so softly soften these areas of white charcoal. But I'm not going to rub too much because I want it to stay really white. And one last thing I want to do is I'm going to take my Micron PN and I'm going to go back and I'm going to redefine the edges of my poke root that meet all my other tangles. I feel like those lines got real muddy with all my graphite and all my shading. So I just like to go back and redefine these lines to make them really bold. And there you have it. This is all of my tangling inspired by the people around me. Creativity that I caught from them. And I just want to thank everybody for tangling along. I want to thank Rick, Maria, Molly, and Martha for inspiring this lovely page. You'll notice I left these corners blank. So my challenge to you for these corners is to challenge yourself. Find something that you have seen in a different tile, or a technique or something that you've seen that you haven't quite tried yet. Maybe you said, I can't do that. Anything that's something out of your comfort zone, and I want you to fill these corner spaces with those tangles or those techniques or whatever it is. And I will also do that. I will step out of my comfort zone and find something that really challenges me. I will fill my corners and I will post my finished spread on the Zentangle Mosaic app. Thank you all for tangling along with us.